Good morning, everyone, and welcome into Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. And today, we're just going to be talking about one subject. One of the beautiful things about Wake and Take is you never know what you're going to talk about until you do know what you're going to talk about. And I would be remiss to not delve into this Rashee Rice situation as this continues to unfold before our eyes. So that's what today's episode is all about, the Rashee Rice legal situation. We're going to look at some Texas laws. We're going to look at some historical examples from around the NFL and just look at what the situation means, what happened, and all of that stuff in general. Plus, stick around because at the very end of the show, I have a very, very special announcement pertaining to you, the Wake and Take audience and listeners that I love so much. So make sure you stick around for a special announcement at the end of the show. So go ahead, take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, everyone, welcome in. Glad to see you all this morning in the YouTube, on the Facebook, on the Instagram, on the Twitter, on the podcast feed if you're listening a little bit later. Thank you all for tuning in. Big Time Timmy Jim says, big day for Wake and Takers, LFG. This guy might know what the later announcement is, as I did maybe give a sneak peek to the trade gods, friends. And maybe that's a look into what will happen. Yeah, and Anthony says, if only there were a news story to cover today. And well, there is one. It's the Rashee Rice situation. Saturday night around 6:30 p.m., Rashee Rice was street racing, allegedly, with one of his friends. And again, we'll go through this. We'll just start with this. Allegedly, Rashee Rice and friends were racing in Dallas before causing a 6-car accident. Really, 4 other cars were involved. His car and the other person's car kind of ran into each other, hit the median, spun out, hit a car. 4 other cars involved. Luckily, within this, there were no major injuries. 2 people were treated on scene for some minor injuries, and 2 people did go into the hospital for some minor injuries as well. Everyone is fine. The big part of this story, and again, they're lucky that people are okay from this. It could have been a lot worse given how fast they were driving, allegedly. But again, only some minor injuries to some people and all that stuff. The big issue here is the fact that he allegedly left the scene. Again, with this situation, there's still no evidence, we're putting quotes around this, that Rashee Rice was driving. There's no evidence that Rashee Rice is there. Just that one of the cars involved in this situation was registered to Rashee Rice's name. That being the Corvette that was involved in the accident. It was a Corvette and a Lamborghini SUV that were racing down the interstate before crashing. The Corvette and the Lamborghini were both left at the scene as they flee on foot. So luckily, we actually do have some dash cam footage and all that stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with some of the stuff that we do have. Here is the dash cam. And you can kind of see that's obviously the cars right there crashing. So if we back up a little bit here, I'll just freeze frame. There's the SUV kind of hitting the median. As you can't really see it, but the Corvette is right here. There's a white kind of van SUV sort of deal in between the Corvette, and then the Lamborghini hits the median in between. And if you keep going, that they crash into that white van. The Corvette crashes into another van. Lots of people spitting out, and that's kind of it. And then you can see as this car with the dash cam continues to drive away, you can see some people getting out of the passenger side of this Lamborghini SUV. Now, no one knows technically who Rashee Rice is in this situation, if he's in the Lamborghini, if he's in the Corvette, yada, yada, yada. But we do have this picture of allegedly, supposedly, and probably Rashee Rice and company fleeing the scene on foot. For some reason, it won't let me zoom in on the photo. But either way, based on what I know about Rashee Rice, I believe that this is probably him with the red item around his head covering himself as much as possible. If he is involved, that is the person I would assume is him. He's obviously got the height for it, and his facial structure is of the Rashee Rice facial structure that I recognize from looking at headshots on the beautifulplayerprofiler.com. Now we basically kind of just have to see what happens with this. As we know now, he has received some legal counsel, and that there is a statement expected to come out later today. But But we have to go into the law. We have to talk about the law here because you want to know what's going on for my fantasy football team. What do I need to do with Rashee Rice? We know the situation. We know a car accident happened. We know Rashee Rice was probably involved. What we don't know was he driving? Was he intoxicated? All of that stuff. Those are the things that will continue to come out about this. When I look into the law, I immediately get concerned. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but luckily, I did start my college career as a political science major, and I have taken law classes. I did mock trial in college. I at least know how to read and interpret laws. So I'm going to relay what I found in my research, and then maybe this will all change when the legal announcement comes out. But I'm going to give my kind of opinion on this as well as what we can find out and know. So the first thing that's important here is actually in Texas, you do have time to report a hit and run before you are found guilty of a hit and run. You have 10 days to report it before it becomes a serious situation. So I do think that we might be in the clear for this concern of the hit and run law, because that is where this is an issue. Street racing, reckless endangerment, both of those are misdemeanors under Texas law. It becomes a felony when it's a hit and run and injuries are involved. So this is the deal. Leaving the scene of an accident involving death or serious injury is a third-degree felony, punishable by 2 to 10 years in state prison. If the injury is not serious, it is a felony punishable by up to 1 year in county jail or up to 5 years in state prison with a fine of up to $5,000. So we already know that no serious injuries were involved, so it's not going to be the third-degree felony. We can go ahead and throw that out the window. There were no serious injuries involved, but minor injuries were, so this lesser degree of a felony doesn't say which degree, it just says it is a felony, punishable by up to 1 year in county jail if the injuries are not serious. So that is probably what we would be looking at if Rashee Rice is found liable, is found to be the one driving the car, is found for this to be a hit and run. But again, under Texas law, you do have 10 days to report it. And given it's only been a couple days, it is probably okay. Probably, maybe. Again, things can change. There's also a lot of interesting wording when you look at the law that could cause some concern as well, because also I mentioned that, if the injury is not serious, it's a minor felony. But there's also some part in the law where it says that if it could have caused serious injury or could have caused death, then he could still be liable for the third-degree felony, punishable by 2 to 10 years, which is, of course, the larger degree. And the reason I put the emphasis on the could is because lawyers are going to be a big part of this, especially with Rashee Rice leaving the scene. There's so many things that are going to be argued with this case that I would go ahead and put myself on the record that Rashee Rice's punishment is probably not too serious. But it might be something, as we get into a little bit later. But basically, if someone was injured, he's facing up to like 5 years in jail. If he is found with the small felony, and again, that you could argue still if it could have caused a severe injury. So it's possible he's facing more. I doubt it with kind of his pedigree as an NFL player, important person to the community type thing. We all know NFL players generally get scot-free with this stuff. But again, lawyers will be able to argue this because also within reckless endangerment and street racing, I already mentioned that they were misdemeanors, but reckless endangerment could also be considered a felony if a deadly weapon is used. So this is where lawyers would come into play again. Is a car a deadly weapon? That's a thing that's going to be argued by lawyers. Some would say, yes, a car could be a deadly weapon. It kills people. Some would say, no, it's not a weapon. It's just a vehicle. And so that's, again, lawyers are going to be a big part of this. And I am curious to see what the statement is. If I had to guess what's going on here, knowing he fled the scene, knowing he was with friends, the situation is probably going to work out okay for Rashee Rice if you take kind of the ethics away. Because the problem here is this video I would love to share with you guys. Here we go.
This right here is Teddy Bridgewater Inc.
Incorporated.
That's him. Now, every dime that come into Teddy, all right, is going to be earned by him and this body. All right? Now, I let my homeboys know. Y'all want to keep rolling like this? Then I need to know who's going to be the fall guy, who's going to be driving, because y'all not going to all do the right stuff now, all right? So I got to teach y'all how to get around all this stuff, too. If you're going to have a crew, one of them fools got to know he going to jail. We'll get him out.
We'll get him out.
Now, you're from Miami now, okay? Y'all take care of each other. Now, don't you got a guy that would take care of you and that would be out a good deal? Okay, good. Go on, sit down.
Go on, sit down.
If you're going to have a crew, make sure you know who's going to be the fall guy, okay? I know none of y'all going to never drink, leg. I know none of y'all going to never use no drugs and everything. All y'all going to go to Bible study. I realize that, but still get you a fall guy, okay? If you're going to have a crew, make sure they understand can't nothing happen to you.
So that was Chris Carter basically telling all of the rookies a few years back how to get around being an irresponsible person. Because let's face it here, these are young kids, right? They're coming out of college and they're given millions of dollars. They're going to act up. We can all admit it. And a lot of us would probably do the same if we were in this situation. Now, of course, there's a difference between speeding down the interstate in sports cars during broad daylight and putting people in danger. But, you know, basically saying if you're going to make mistakes, have someone be there to take the fall for you. And I would not be surprised if that's the way that this is going. Let's be honest here, guys. He fled on foot with his friends and now has legal counsel and an announcement's going to be made later. And the reason that I feel like the fled on foot is just so important to note is that the police are not going to be able to do anything when it comes to a DUI, a DWI. It is so far removed from the accident with him not being at the scene that he can't be tested really anything. And if he was, you can't prove that it was while he was behind the vehicle. So at most, again, he's going to get this county jail felony of up to a year with probably some misdemeanors from reckless endangerment and street racing. And then it comes to what the lawyers can argue. Was it a hit and run? Because again, you have some time to report it, apparently by Dallas law. So it might not even be a hit and run technically yet. Also, if a vehicle is a deadly weapon is going to come into play here with the argument. And then how the lawyers argue who was driving. Because there's a huge world here where Rashee Rice just says, I was in the back seat. I could see an argument, right? From lawyers could say so many things, guys. They could say so many things. Oh, Rashee Rice, he was drinking earlier, so he just had his friend drive, and he was just napping in the back seat and didn't even know that they were racing. He was trying to be responsible, but made a mistake, and now he has to pay for it. That kind of thing. Like so many different ways can come out of here. And then just seeing that Chris Carter years back is encouraging people to have a fall guy. It's just known that the NFL players know this, right? And that these posses probably know this, that someone is probably figuring out what the deal is going to be, how much money and I'm going to get paid to go to jail for you. Because I do think with it being a video, with there being photos out, that the NFL is going to have to do something, right? As someone points out here in the comment here, Anthony says NFL conduct policy is an issue as well as the law. So as we've talked about 1,000 times on this show now, as NFL players just seemingly get into trouble all the time, we know that usually if there's a video or photographs or it's really popular on social media, the NFL is going to act somehow and in some way. And more often than not, more dangerously than they had before. We do have some historical references here. We have Henry Ruggs. Of course, this was a few years back and much more serious. Henry Ruggs was found guilty of a felony DUI after killing a 23-year-old woman and her dog while speeding down the Vegas Strip. He was given an indefinite suspension on top of a 3 to 10-year prison sentence. So if he's getting, let's face it here, guys, if Rashee Rice gets a felony, he will get indefinitely suspended. Plain and simple. We have to figure out if he's going to get the felony. Again, I don't know. We have to kind of wait on the legal counsel statement to come out. As we know, he does have some people protecting him. We know he has millions of dollars, and we know that friends were there that could take the fall if needed. So I would say on the far end, the extreme side, we're looking at a Henry Ruggs-esque situation. And on the most minor side that I don't see happening at all is the Jalen Carter situation. Because we have to remember here with Jalen Carter, he was given no suspension because he wasn't in the NFL yet. Like he acted this way. He did his crime while he was still in college, while he was still a UGA Bulldog. And the fact that he wasn't given a felony or anything is going to help his case as well. Jalen Carter was only sentenced to 12 months of probation, $1,000 fine, and 50 hours of community service because in Athens, Georgia, they have the back of the UGA Bulldogs. They're not going to swiftly punish someone, and they're not going to aggressively punish someone if they were drinking and driving. That's just not the way that city operates. As someone who lives in Georgia, as someone who spent some time in that city, it is definitely just a different world that those athletes live in, and they are definitely not held to the same standards that a lot of people are in today's society. So knowing that nothing really happened to Jalen Carter and knowing that Henry Ruggs hasn't stepped on the football field since his incident, I would say that Rashee Rice will see a suspension. Regardless of if he sees a felony, regardless if he's found as the driver, regardless of if the lawyers argue that a car is a deadly weapon and, you know, he could have killed people and yada, yada, yada. No matter what, Rashee Rice will see a suspension. And I would be surprised if it is not by the beginning of this season because of the social media presence, because of the videos, because of the pictures. I do think the NFL will do something by the beginning of this year. I know that's not generally how these things go, but in the age of social media, with everything going around, I do expect the NFL to act within this summer. I still think it's going to take a couple months before we know what happens. And I do think we're going to get given a lot of clarity when we find out what Rashee Rice's legal counsel has to say about the situation. For now, when it comes to fantasy football, I would say you have to hold tight on Rashee Rice, but also I would still recommend buying or trying to buy a Marquise Brown in this situation, maybe trying to buy a Travis Kelce, because there's still some trepidation. Yes, people are looking to sell these players now, and yes, their prices increased a tiny bit, but nowhere near the amount those prices would increase if something were to actually happen to Rashee Rice in terms of how he's on the football field next season. And I do still think with the case of Travis Kelce and Marquise Brown, that both of those guys' values are already insulated, regardless of if Rashee Rice gets suspended or not. So what Rashee Rice, let me just sum this all up. We can probably, we'll make this a TikTok just to keep it simple. To sum this all up, Rashee Rice is facing a felony for hit and run in Texas that could be punishable of up to 5 years in jail or 10, depending on how lawyers argue this case. Also, he's facing a couple misdemeanors, one of which could turn into a felony based on how the lawyers argue the case. Also, we know that he will probably have a fall guy or something. I would be very shocked if he doesn't, because I think that the best case situation for this, if it were to happen in real time, would have been Rashee Rice to stay there and speak with the police and just go ahead and settle everything there. But something tells me that there could have been something involved, whether it be alcohol or drugs, that led to him wanting to flee the scene so he wasn't facing a DUI or DWI and was just leaving. Again, everyone. There's also video of everyone leaving the vehicles out of the passenger side. There's no video or photographic evidence of anyone leaving the driver's side of the vehicle. So that leaves another argument open. Was Rashee Rice driving? Who was driving? You can't prove who was driving regardless. You can't say this guy was driving. You can't say that guy was driving because everyone got out of the passenger side, right? So it's a very interesting case, and a lot of it is going to come down to lawyers, and a lot of it's going to come down to arguments. But at the very least, with there being video, with there being photographic evidence, a suspension will happen. And I would say it's at least 3 games. Now, I know that we've seen a ton of suspensions in this league for worse with less punishment, right? Like people just getting 2 games for sexual assault and stuff like that. But again, this is a situation where the NFL will be looking to make an example of Rashee Rice. They just will. They really do care about this personal conduct policy. They just do. And with things continuously getting worse and worse and worse, in terms of just some of the players' actions, you've got to expect the NFL to make some sort of example of Rashee Rice. I don't think he'll see an indefinite suspension. I really don't. I would be shocked. I do 100% expect Rashee Rice to play football in 2024. It's just a matter of how many games he's given a suspension for. I think on the high end right now, I would say 8 games is the high end, and I would say 2 to 3 games as the low end. That's just based on, past suspensions. That's based on what we know about the situation itself, and also just kind of what we know about how the NFL handles these things. And this is a Super Bowl winning young wide receiver. They're probably not going to be too harsh with him, especially since there's no evidence he was driving, no evidence he was under the influence, and absolutely, he's just a young guy with a promising career, and the NFL likes that. So I think, again, he's going to be facing a felony, probably won't get it, and probably will see some sort of suspension regardless of the legal case, because the NFL conduct policy will come into play here. And either way you spin it, this is not a good look for Rashee Rice or the NFL, because I've read the comments on this situation. I'm sure you guys agree. This is a very, very touchy subject, and it could have been so much worse. Rashee Rice could have literally killed people this weekend, could have really just ruined families. He's lucky he didn't, but the fact remains that he could have. And the fact remains that what he was doing was a very dangerous and stupid thing to be doing. And so I expect the NFL to have some sort of action when it comes to Rashee Rice, and I expect some sort of suspension for this season. I do not think it'll like bleed into 2025 at all. The NFL will make their decision this summer. I really expect it because of how quickly this has just engulfed social media, because of all the evidence that's out there publicly already, because of the public opinion that's out there already. They're going to have to act soon. And that'll probably honestly work in the benefit of Rashee Rice, to be honest. The fact that they're going to have to make a decision quickly on this, I think will make it to just where they're like, yeah, let's just suspend him for half the year and then give him a fine. And, he's still going to lose a lot of money by the people he injured in this accident. But ultimately, this is not like, it's going to be a PR thing at the end of the day. Like, no one was hurt, so they're lucky that they don't have to do anything in that regard. But there's still going to be tons of the, what could have been type of stuff too. So we're going to see what happens with this legal announcement from his counsel later today. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's episode, and that'll give us a lot more clarity. So I guess I'll also add this, right? What we should be looking for in this legal counsel statement is who they say is driving, what they say about Rashee Rice's involvement in general, and just whatever arguments they make in terms of hit and run, if they consider it a hit and run, or if they say, since we're reporting it now, Rashee Rice was just not in a great headspace, just had to leave, everything is just spinning for him given his what type of career he has and all that stuff. I don't know, right? But again, the law in Texas does say you have some time to report a hit and run before you actually face those penalties. And so with that being said, I don't think he'll face the hit and run penalties too much, but he could still, depending on the other lawyers. I just need to wrap this up. Lawyers are going to argue this thing. He's probably going to be facing a felony charge. Whether or not he gets it, that's the lawyers to decide. That's the judge to decide. That's the jury to decide. He's probably at the very least going to have a settlement, and he's probably at the very least going to see some sort of suspension, but I highly doubt it's indefinite. So I would answer this question: Rashee Rice or the 109? Right now, see, the 109, I would probably stick to Rashee Rice. You, at this very point in time, I think that you could get the 109 and probably draft, if the Chiefs do draft a receiver, you could probably get that receiver with the 109. You could probably get Rashee Rice-ish equivalent value for the 109, regardless of if he's suspended or not. But I think that's right there. I think if you could get Rashee Rice for a second, you do it. I think if you have him and you want to get out from under, you're a little nervous, I would take the 109. If you just want to ride it out, say you've got the Patrick Mahomes stack, just go ahead and hold on. But again, I don't think it's indefinite. I think Rashee Rice will play football again. And we have to accept, guys, he left the scene, and that was probably, while it sucks that he left the scene, while it's awful that he left the scene, it does help him in terms of legalities. It just does. Because again, if drugs or alcohol were involved, they're not anymore. There's no way to prove it. If he was driving, there's now no way to prove it as well if he left. And those are the two big things. And so he will face misdemeanors for the reckless endangerment in street racing and could potentially face a felony for the hit and run offense based on what the legal team says today. But either way, I would probably hold on to him if I had him. I'm not going to lie. I would probably hold on to him. But if you could get, I would say the 109 is probably as low as I would go. If you could get more still, I would do it. And the 109 isn't bad. It's just I think I would rather hold Rashee Rice. I think with the 109, you could get enough value to where you're not like totally upset about it. But I, again, just don't think Rashee Rice is going to miss, more than like half a season next year. And then he's going to come back and still be a Chiefs receiver with Patrick Mahomes, and we're all going to forget about it. But I would expect some sort of punishment for him. I really would. But I guess that's all I have on Rashee Rice. I know I rambled there. It's, law is hard, right? Law is difficult. But I think that we kind of get the gist of the situation here. And ultimately, he'll probably be fine when you put on the 2025 lens at the very least. Again, I really doubt he sees an indefinite suspension. And I honestly really doubt he sees jail time. I think that that's what's I thought that we would have the legal statement by now, to be honest. When I saw last night that it was going to come out, I was like, no way it doesn't come out by 10 a.m. in the morning. Like, he's got to get on this. But they're working stuff out. And I guarantee part of it is working out who the fall guy is going to be and how much money they're going to pay that fall guy for going to jail for him. I'm just being honest here. We just watched the Chris Carter clip, guys. But either way, that brings me to my final topic of today. And I'm going to go ahead and paste a link here in the chat, everyone. I have decided to begin the Wake and Take Listener League. This is not an April Fool's joke. We will be playing some fantasy football with me. Right now, it's a 14-team league, although I do have an idea to make it a 32-team league if the interest is there. I've just dropped a link in the chat. If you'd like to join, go ahead and sign up. It's 14 teams. It's super flex. I'm coining a new term, passer premium, 1 point per 10 yards passing, just like rushing and receiving, because I'm tired of yards counting less for quarterbacks. They should all count the same. Quarterbacks are important. Let's make them important. Also, it's super tight end premium, 2 PPR for a tight end reception. And there's kick return scoring, so 1 point per 10 return yards. I think that's going to be really fun with the new kick return stuff. We've got Start 11. We've got Taxi Squad. We've got a deep bench. It's a really fun league. I copied over a lot of what we do in the Trade Gods League because I like that setup a lot. Currently, the way we're going to do this is a 5-round auction to begin it. That way everyone can get the foundation. We're going to live stream that auction here on Wake and Take. And then after that 5-round auction, we will be skipping to a slow snake draft. And whoever has the highest remaining auction budget following the first 5 rounds will get the 101 in the rookie draft. Actually, we might be doing this draft after the rookie draft, so we'll have to figure out something else. We'll have to figure out something else for the budget, or maybe we should do it before. We'll figure it out, guys. If we have the league fill before the NFL draft, we'll go ahead and do the startup. If not, we'll do it after the draft and have the rookies involved. But we could do a startup and a rookie, startup and a rookie draft, or we could just do a whole startup draft with the rookies involved. We'll see how it goes. But the link is in the chat. I wanted you guys that are here live to get the first dibs. I haven't tweeted it out yet. I won't tweet it out until a little bit later. Again, I'm just going to keep rambling so you guys can join. The link is in the chat on Facebook, on YouTube. If you're listening on Twitter right now, go to YouTube, as it looks like it didn't send to Twitter, but I will tweet it out later today. I will probably give it a couple more hours here, and then I will tweet it out because I do want to get this filled so we can figure out a good draft time for everyone and all that stuff. But it's going to be fun. Really love the Trade Gods League. Like, genuinely, that league, it means it's just a fantastic group of people. So everyone in the Trade Gods League, thank you for making it so special. Tons of trades going on. I think the format is really fun and unique too. And I wanted to bring some of that magic to you guys with Wake and Take as well, because it's startup season and we need a little bit of draft action. We need some fun. Join the Wake and Take Listener League. Again, the link is in the chat. Yeah, and again, if we get more than 14, I have a very fun idea to make it 32 teams, but I'll keep that sealed, as I may take that option and just do a 32-team league with that idea if I can get the interest. But either way, thanks a lot, guys, for tuning in. I don't think I see any questions, but I'll go ahead and check, give you guys more time to join the league. I got Rice for cheap today. Was it worth it? Yes, I think so. Well, you gave Cup in a second rounder. I don't know if that's cheap. So I would say that's not cheap, and I would say I probably would have just kept Cup in a second rounder. But that's also, I'm a Cup guy. I'm also just like I like the old, like my trade gods team. I just talked about it. I had Tyreek Hill. I traded him, but I have DeAndre Hopkins. I've got Cooper Kupp. I've got Matthew Stafford, Josh Jacobs. I've got old dudes. It's dusty, and I don't hate that in Dynasty. I really don't. I think that older people need a little bit more value. But that's just a Jason thing. But yeah, buy some Rashee Rice if you can get him at a discount. Sorry, B. Haldy. I don't know if that was necessarily a discount, unfortunately. But that's also just because, again, I don't buy into the youth thing when it comes to Dynasty. I want studs regardless of their age. So either way, this has been the most live listeners, also looking at almost 700 people tuned in. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I will see you all tomorrow. Make sure you go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and also join the Sleeper League for Wake and Take. We will get that going as soon as possible. You guys are awesome. Have a magnificent Monday. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And I'll see you all tomorrow to break down what Rashee Rice's lawyer said.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.